Good afternoon, Dr. Brian Peters.
Good afternoon.
Man, it's so great to have you back for another episode of The Science of Engagement. I'm really loving this. I'm loving these conversations, and we're getting some good feedback as we start to dig into the meat and potatoes, the ROI. What's the business value of engagement? As we discussed last time, there's a high business value in engagement when you have a truly engaged workforce. Most of your important business drivers, whether it be profitability, increasing revenue, enhanced productivity, everything goes up. We talked about that last time. We'll continue about. But now we're going to get just a little bit more theoretical into the purpose of life itself and what people seem to be looking for the most when they go into work. And that is they want to be happy. And I know you're going to say, duh. But we've been talking to a lot of people. We've even been talking to the members of our nationally famous consulting team here around Engagement View, Feedback Consulting Partners, where we have a lot of rock stars, nationally known consulting rock stars. And when we talked about why does everybody really want to keep pushing forward with this important work, everyone says the same thing. I would just like to help make people happier and more productive in the workplace. That's what all of our rock star consulting team members say. And they say, because, my purpose, I want to be happy. I want to be with an exciting team. And as a matter of fact, one of our team members, Kristen Turdick, who's, a rock star, vice president of sales for our group, said that a person that she's coaching said that he was so happy in working with her because he finally understands the point of what he's doing and the purpose of his job. Whereas in his last 3 or 4 jobs or something, he was profoundly unhappy because he never knew the point and never knew the purpose. So that seems, I know it seems like simple, like duh, but people want to know the point. Like, what's the point of my job? Like, what's the point of being alive? Kind of thing. And I'll just stop there and saying that, sometimes people talk about CEOs and if they really truly care about their people. Well, I think most of them do. And I think most CEOs understand that their job, above all other jobs, is to keep articulating the point, like why their company is on the planet, the purpose of their company at the highest possible level, and then making sure that that information gets down through every single channel throughout the organization and that no one stops it at any juncture. I think it's that. I think it's that simple. So I'm going to shut up now and talk to me about what our own team says, about what people that we're interacting with say. I just want to be happy. Is that it? Is that the secret? And how does engagement, a real engagement platform, allow people to be happier, more engaged, more productive, and actually see the point and the purpose of them coming to work?
One of the reasons that I got into industrial organizational psychology is because I wanted to make the workplace better. I originally was going to look at, I was actually on a path to do clinical psychology, and I realized there's a big emotional toll to do clinical work, and that ultimately long-term I wasn't going to be able to do that, but I still wanted to help people. And I figured, well, people spend a lot of time at work. And we've talked about this in other episodes. There's a lot of like workplace trauma as well. People dealing with really bad leaders or really toxic environments where they're miserable. And then that spills into other organizations when they move jobs because they have lost this trust that leaders care about them. So just like you said, I would echo what a lot of people are saying. I think people do want to be happy. I want to help make the workplace better, which is why I got into this field. I think that not everybody wants the same thing in the workplace. You will find people that all they care about is making more money. That's it. That's the number one thing. They don't want buddies at work. They They don't care about the environment so much. I think that's a small percentage of people, but it does happen. I do think the vast majority of people want to feel good about what they're doing. They want to feel cared about at work. They want to feel like they're doing something of value, that their time is being given, that them putting in their time is worth more than just the paycheck. They're also, to your point, there's a purpose to what they do. So yeah, I mean, I agree. I don't, and there are, I'm sure, some leaders out there that don't care if their team is happy. I've heard leaders say, you should be happy the fact that you're getting a paycheck, right? Like, that's what I'm paying, your reward for working here is the paycheck. I think that's a bit short-sighted. When you focus, well, we talked about this in one of the last episodes, that even if you don't care, even if you're one of those leaders, if you focus on engagement initiatives, one of the byproducts will be a happier workforce, right? If they're more engaged, if they're more dedicated, energetic, all of that with what they do, they will ultimately be happier, which does spill into their personal life as well. So, yeah, I mean, I think what makes somebody happy or what makes somebody engaged can be very unique to the individual. But I do think it's important.
Well, yeah. I think everyone needs to understand reality, and stop making excuses for, you should just be happy to have a job. I mean, like that guy that I was talking about last time that actually wrote a newspaper article and said it helps to talk to your employees like for 5 minutes once a year, and sometimes it doesn't. It's okay to give them it helps to give them a Christmas ham. I mean, just okay. My God, in the 2020s. But at any rate, no, it's not about giving them a Christmas ham, man. It's about, making them feel like they matter and they want to perform in the workplace. I mean, don't be stupid. I mean, is what I want to say. Just, you should be lucky you have a job. It just doesn't work. I mean, not for people in a symphony, a concert violinist, and not for superstars in the workplace. I'm saying that because I saw the North Carolina Symphony last night. They were playing some Beethoven. They had this amazing concert violinist come in as a guest, and he just killed it. It was just like mind-boggling. And I'm sure that when he walked on stage, the conductor didn't say, "Just get up there and do your job. You just better get up there and do your job." I mean, I don't think so, because he would have said, okay, well, I don't really feel like playing right now because, my whole body is like a finely tuned instrument. Now I kind of feel kind of depressed, so I'm probably going to stink, man, when I get up there and start playing. High performing people are the same way. It's just like everybody on our own team. Just think about it. Everybody on our own feedback consulting partners team is a rock star. And just like that concert violinist, they're a finely tuned machine. I mean, I would never in my wildest dreams think of saying something condescending and just do your job to anybody on my team. Like, well, okay, I guess I kind of lost my spark and my fizzle. I don't really feel like making any calls right now. I mean, why would I be that stupid? I mean, I think that people keep making that excuse, you should be happy to have your job. And that's just crazy. It's nuts. We should just admit it. Good people are finely tuned machines, and they react to encouragement and praise and sustenance. They just do, man. Right?
Well, because organizations, a lot of times, they're reactive in a lot of ways, especially when it comes to their people. So you look at whenever the job market is challenging for employers, right? So when they have a hard time finding people for different roles, and it can vary depending on the market. You look like healthcare, nursing's always hard to find people. Data centers is a big market right now. It's really hard to find people. Whenever you have that, there's a lot of investment that's done in engagement and keeping people happy or engaged in the workplace. The moment that shifts and there's an abundance, so you look at like in my career field in human resources, there's a ton of unemployed HR professionals right now. So you can go out and have your sort of pick. You don't need to worry about it necessarily. I think that's personally short-sighted, right? And I think if you just had an overall culture of really, building what we've been talking about, these different ways to keep people engaged, and you're just consistent with that over time, that is better for you. Because even if you can go get somebody new, there's still that while somebody is out, there's a shift in workload. If somebody is just staying with you, but kind of quiet quitting because they're worried about getting another job in the market, so they're just staying, they're not as productive. So you're losing performance that way. Recruiting costs, things like that, right? When you look at cost of attrition. But I see it often where whenever the job market is tight for employers, they really focus on these things. Whenever it's not, they don't care as much anymore, and they let go, engagement professionals, or, a lot of people in HR get let go at that point, right? Because they just it doesn't matter. They only look at it in the short window of time, and they look at it as a cost saving measures, not factoring into what are they actually. So yes, you're saving some money by reducing your headcount, reducing some resources there, but you're also then reducing your overall ability to generate revenue, because now you've just killed the motivation in your workforce.
Yeah, well, that has to leave us with some, ironclad rules that we can put on a poster board out in the hallway to say, if you want to have a productive company and you want to hire high performers and you want to keep them and you want to have the highest productivity and revenue you can this year, you must follow these 10 commandments or something every day, and you can't break them. Like, what would they be? If you had no wiggle room and you were just to say, okay, I'm Dr. Brian Peters, I have my doctorate literally in engagement, I'm saying you have to do these 10 things if you want to move the needle, then what would those 10 commandments be? Or just the 5 commandments?
I mean, really, if you want to overly simplify it, you could have one rule, and that is people first, right? Put your people first. Now, that gets misconstrued as meaning that everything you do has to be to benefit employees. And that's not what it means. What people first really means is that every decision you make takes into account how it impacts both your internal employees and your external customers, right? And so you always think about people first. If you go to make a decision, you might have to make hard choices like layoffs or, changing work rules or whatever, because your business needs to do that. And that's fine. But what you should be doing while you're, coming up with or developing a communication strategy around it, or when you're deciding to do that, is think about how it impacts the employees and do everything you can to mitigate any of the negative effects. I would tell employees when I used to talk about people first and we would roll something out that they didn't like, they said, that's not very people first of you. I'm like, well, you misunderstand what it means, right? People first doesn't mean you get everything that you want, because it's just not possible. There is a finite amount of resources, money, time, other resources, right? So I can't give employees everything they want, but I will tell you, when I was running a company, every decision that we made, we thought about how it impacted people. And you can really just simplify it down to that, right? If you just think about your people and everything that you do, it'll take you very far. And so then through that, you can have different strategies, right? One of the things that I did in an organization is I created what's called an employee advisory board. So it was a one employee, individual contributor from every single department that came together bi-weekly, and they would talk about things going on in their department, issues that they're having, ideas that they have for the company. And then a leader sat in on all of those, not to do anything, but just answer questions if they had them, and then take that feedback back to the overall leadership group to help make decisions. It gave them a voice within the organization. That wasn't the only thing, right? We also did, employee engagement surveys and all the stuff that most organizations do. But this was a regular meeting of employees that would help give us feedback every other week. We were getting information from them and helping us make decisions, and they felt a part of that. So they took pride in that, because decisions that were made, they were involved at some level. And then we would also, if we can't make decision, I committed to them that we'd always go back and say why we can't do something that they did, right? If we couldn't do something that they wanted, we would always go back and say, this is why we can't do it ever or right now, right? So we want to do X, Y, Z. Well, we can't financially afford to do that. Once we get to this point, let's revisit it, right? Or that doesn't work in our industry, and here's why. And because I have found that people respect a lot more. They may not agree with you, they may not like it, but they respond a lot better when you explain the why behind something, and you guys can agree to disagree, but they at least appreciate the respect that you give them. So it depends on what you're talking about here. If you say, 5 commandments, right? If it's, 5 strategies, we can talk about that. But if we just want to whittle it down to what is the couple of things or whatever that you should always be thinking about, you can whittle it down to 1: people first. Put your people first and implement strategies around that.
Yes. So I agree with you. I would say I've got a couple ideas. I mean, I can give you one, and then I can give you like 2 or 3, but let me start with one. I'll preface that by saying when I was younger and I was working in Manhattan, I was the editor of a leadership magazine. And in that capacity, I got to meet and interview thousands of famous leaders and CEOs and just got to be in the room with them. It was like amazing. There was one common denominator among all of the most famous leaders and household name CEOs and leaders in different fields, Nobel laureates and stuff that I've ever met. They had one common denominator. When I was in the room with them, they made me feel 10 feet tall. They made me feel like I was the cool guy. It was amazing. Like I was the most important person in the room. I've never seen anything like it. And I was like, wait a minute, you're the famous one, but they made me feel famous. Like I met Richard Branson, among many other people. He came to my office. He walked to my office, near Park Avenue, and it was like, hey, how you doing? I'm Richard Branson. And he just like hung out for like 2 hours and like talked. And the entire time that he was there, he made me feel like the superstar. He was just the coolest guy that I've ever met. And I'm like, gosh, I wonder why this guy's one of the most famous and successful entrepreneurs on the planet. It's because he makes everybody else feel super special, like he's doing to me right now. I mean, everybody that's like a famous household word leader where they're followed by, thousands and thousands of people, they seem to have that same vibe. So I would say when I wrote my first book, which How to Mind Read Your Customers, which was endorsed by Stephen Covey and Best Book of the Year, Sales and Marketing Management Magazine, required reading in a lot of sales forces, major corporations. I had this opening sentence in there and I said, okay, if you don't have time to read this entire book, let me just give you one piece of advice and you can probably take it from there. When you're in a room with someone, make sure that every human being that you interact with every single day, every single human being that you ever interact with or talk to, while you're talking to them, make sure feels like the most important human being in the world. That while you're interacting with them and talking to them, they feel like the most important person on the planet. If you learn how to do that, you're going to be a very wealthy person. That's How to Mind Read Your Customers in one sentence. You can read the rest of the book if you want to, but that's it. Dude, I got like 10,000 emails from people going, oh man, I cried when I read that because you're so right. And I've been putting this into action. I'm killing it out there, man. It really is about making every human being that you talk to feel special. It's not complicated. But if you want me to give you a couple more, I can go beyond that. I was talking to I think the guy was in his 80s. He was almost 90, but he was still running a company and very successful guy. And I was telling him about my book that was coming out, How to Mind Read Your Customers. And I asked him if he could give me some tidbits. And he said, yeah, you're absolutely right, man. You're absolutely right. It's about making everybody feel important. But I kind of go one step further. And I was like, well, what's that, John? His name was John. And he said, well, I try to give them a plan. Like, not only do I make them feel like the most important person in the world, but I sit down and say, let's make a plan. So I'll bring like a young sales guy, whatever, in to my office, and I'll say, I've got 2 homes and 3 beach houses. How would you like to have 2 homes and a boat and 3 beach houses too? And they say, gosh, I would like that, John. I really would. I mean, I think my wife would really like it if I could, have 3 beach houses and a boat and, just a couple of homes. And he would say, well, let me show you how to do that. So here's how I did it. So first of all, let's make a little plan. So this is the first thing you're going to do this year. You're going to achieve these goals. And then after that, I'm pretty sure you're going to be able to buy your second home by the end of the year if you just do what I say. And then if we stick to this plan, we can kind of develop it as we go along. I think I can help you buy your first beach house within 5 years. And that's what I do, Dave. I just help people make a plan, and I show them exactly how to do it based upon how I did it. It's always worked for me, and I'm pretty stinking rich. So I think that the greatest leaders, they not only make people feel better, but they say, let me show you how to be successful. Here is how I did it. Do you have any questions about that? And they form that mentoring relationship with people. And I think that's where hugely successful companies come from. Do you have any thoughts or insights on that?
Yeah, I agree with you. I would say that both of your examples fall under people first, right? Which is why I just gave an overly broad concept there, right? And I do think it's important to do what we're doing now and talk about specifics, right? So I'm not dismissing that as, let's just stick with that. But why I start at that level is because what people first means can vary depending on the organization, context, situation, right? But if you just keep that in your mind, that everything we're doing is we're putting people first. So like in the examples that you gave, that's, making somebody feel like they're very important, mentoring somebody, all of that, like that is putting people first. And so if you go into that, the core belief of what you have, the core value that you have is to put people first, and those are the way you're making decisions, then you're going to be more apt to doing the things that you're talking about. I think the mentoring is huge. Being able to guide people and develop people is incredibly important. And people are actually, I think, yearning for it. I mean, I see feedback on this all the time when I'm looking at survey results or just even anecdotally talking with people. They want development, right? They want somebody to come in and help them get to that next stage. I never had somebody that I would consider like a mentor for myself. And I kind of wish I did, because a lot of what I learned, I just had to learn on my own, and through education and experience and all of that. But I would have loved to have somebody, take me under their wing and really help me develop like that. And I think most people are that way. And I think you'll get a lot from them, and you'll get a lot of, loyalty and commitment from people when you do that, and you'll start to build really good networks. One of the challenges that you do have with mentorship is the scalability of it, because your time is a resource, right? So when you're a leader for organizations, I speak a lot about span of control, making sure you have so many, you don't overdo, how am I want to phrase this? Span of control, where you make sure you have the appropriate number of employees reporting to a leader, right? Because a leader can only develop and coach and all of that so many people. If you give somebody 50 direct reports and expect them to do regular one-on-ones, it's just never going to happen, right? Half-hour one-on-one with 50 people is going to be 25 hours a month, right? A lot of leaders don't necessarily have that time. So I think organizations and leaders really need to focus on that so that they can do these things that you're talking about, because I do think it's incredibly important. And where I see it fail is when you say, hey, you need to manage these 15, 20, 30 people. And they're like, okay, well, I don't have time to develop any of them. And there's actually a theory called leader-member exchange theory that kind of talks about this, that leaders only have the capacity to have a direct relationship with so many people. So they end up they have to delegate things to the people that they have the trust in, and then they have to they're more of like a leader with the people, that a small group of people, and they're more of a manager with the rest of them, right? Because that's just how their time breaks down, and they don't have the capacity to do it all. But I know I'm getting a bit off topic, but I do think that everything you laid out is great. And I think that organizations need to do a better job of understanding how important these things are, and making sure that their organizational structures are set up in a way where leaders can truly take that coaching that coaching approach.
Right. Well, let's just end with this, because what you were saying, I always have these epiphanies, Brian, when I listen to you talk. I just had another one. I think I'll cap off with this, and I'll just tell you what I was thinking while you were talking. You tell me if it makes sense, and then I think we have a nice little episode. I just realized when you're talking that engagement is a two-way street. Like the leadership, we'll just talk about the CEO for a moment. I mean, we're talking about all of leadership, but we can just talk about the CEO only and the rest of the organization. Well, if the CEO can help make sure that there's a purpose and a plan for everyone, that's going to make everyone more successful. But by using our own tool, Engagement View, and the analytics that we use and finding out what people's ideas are for improvement and how engaged they are, they give a gift back to the CEO. Mm-hmm. Because the CEO is sitting there, and dude, I've interviewed and sat in a room with face to face thousands of CEOs, a lot of them household names. They all think the same. They're looking for stuff that can be the next big idea that can be presented them in 5 minutes. They don't want a huge long chit chat, but they're all interested in, okay, so they're kind of like rock stars in a way. This is their thought process every day. Well, that last concert we had was kind of cool. I had, 20,000 people there, but that's not good enough. Man, my next concert, I'd like to have 50,000 people show up. So how do I get to 50,000? How do I get a crowd of 50,000 people next time and not just 20? That's the CEO thought process. And then once they get 50, it's like, well, 50 was cool, but I'd like to have 250,000 people listening to me next time. And they want to know, well, how do I do that? And they don't want a long, like hour-long explanation. It was like, hey, Brian, so, you're a doctor of engagement and stuff. So I know we're really killing it right now, but I'd like to double kill it within the next 6 months. Like, how do I do that, Brian? Well, sir, or like, ma'am, whatever the case may be, we've been looking at some of the data from your people on what they like and what they don't like, and if they're happy or not, and what their ideas are for killing it. And I sifted through all the data, and it looks like that 90% of people are saying you can kill it even more than you're killing it now if you just do these things. You've got that? Sir, I've got it, or ma'am, I've got it on one page. Awesome. Dr. Peters, man, this has been awesome. I'm just going to do this. I don't know where to send the check, but I just can't wait to write it to you. Man, if we can talk again next month, that would be awesome. I mean, that's kind of like how it is, really. And so it's a two-way gift. If the leadership gifts the employees by making them feel great and showing them a purpose, and then you have a true engagement platform, the employees can give the gift back to leadership so everyone can become better and have a plan, a simple plan, not just gibberish, but an actual plan of how to do it on one page, revisited every month, every quarter. It's all about planning. Engagement is a two-way gift, and it's all about planning. That's what I saw when you were talking. Thoughts on that?
I agree. I actually have a similar conversation with managers often when we're talking. Usually it's around coaching, but I think it's a similar idea. I firmly believe that organizations or leaders within those organizations have a commitment to invest in employees, right? You have a commitment to invest in their success, their development, all of that. But employees also have a responsibility to take that investment and do something with it, right? And to actually like hear back from the coaching, provide feedback back up the chain, right? It can't just be the leaders investing all of this time and resources into help their success. Employees that are not going to take those resources and do something with it are not going to be successful. And so if we can't get to that point, then they're probably not the right fit for that role, right? So to your point, I do, and I talk about this often, it is a two-way street. Organizations must invest in their employees. Employees must take that investment and do something with it. And I think the stuff that you pointed out is part of that, right? Is giving that feedback back, going out and innovating and being creative and really performing in their role. So I agree wholeheartly. And while you were talking about that, because you mentioned, getting the feedback and being able to say, hey, do these things, I think that's an important thing to just an important concept to hang on to for just a moment, because I think when we do these episodes, one of the concerns that goes into my mind is like, are we giving enough like concrete, hey, actionable, go out and do this? And I think we do. And then sometimes we talk very conceptually. Like when I say people first, right? That's a very like broad conceptual topic or idea. And the problem that we run into when we're having these discussions is we don't know what's going on in their organization, right? And so I think that's important for people to know when they're listening to us talk, is that take some of these ideas and try them out, but what your people need might vary. And so using tools like Engagement View or other tools to understand that feedback. And I think the one thing you people all could take away from this, no matter what organization, is listen to your people, find some mechanism to get that feedback. And then all the other strategies can be developed off of that, right? So if you are people first and you listen and you take the time to listen to what your people want, then we can develop that one pager you're talking about. Hey, we need to do these things because this is what's broken in the organization. It's hard sometimes to do that, to give that advice to people when you have no insight into what's going on in their company. And so I don't know, it's just a thought that I had. I don't know how you feel about that, but I just, I want us to be able to give as much concrete information we can to people that are watching, but also with the caveat of the needs of your organization might be slightly different. So you can try some of these things, but you need to be willing to listen and then adjust.
I'm going to end with this. That was beautiful, man. And I agree 100%. I just want to throw out something, and then we can like zip this up with a bow, and we can revisit. Jump right back into it next time. What you just said is straight up biblical, man, because it's talking about human beings to have an accountability to do something with the gifts that they were given. Like all the responsibility is not on the leadership. People need to step up to the plate too. And so a lot of leaders say, come on, man, I've done a lot for you. I spent a lot of money on training. You asked for a raise, I gave it to you. And then I sent you here and got some training. But, it just seems like you're not stepping up. So, human beings do have the responsibility to look at the talents and the gifts that they've been given and say to themselves, what am I doing with my gifts and talents today? They really honestly do. And it's straight up biblical. I mean, it's a parable. Remember, like one of the parables? Mm-hmm. Is this rich guy, like had these people working for him and said, well, I'm going to give everybody some money, but I got to go away for a while to another country, and then I'm going to come back. And they were like, okay, cool. So he gives them all some talents. Money was called talents. And so he gives them the talents, and then he goes away, and he comes back, and he's like, hey, everybody, how you doing? Cool. So what did you do with your talents? Well, I took these talents, and I turned them into, I don't know what the number was. I'm just kind of joking around. 1,000. Oh, that's awesome. Cool. Great job. So what did you with your talents? Well, I took my talents and I know this is not the exact number. Well, I made 250 talents. Sweet. That's great. Okay. And then finally goes to the last person. What did you do with your talent? Well, I buried it in the ground. I didn't really do anything with it. I just kind of like took my one talent. I buried it in like the ground. I didn't do anything because I just wanted to keep it safe. That's totally uncool. That's not what I was expecting. That's a Bible parable. So the same thing applies to people, right? We're not supposed to bury our talent in the ground. We're supposed to like do something with it and take stock of it. So I guess one of my challenges to people, in the workforce, even to myself. I mean, I tell myself I'm hard on myself with this every day, and really hard on myself every day. God gave you a certain amount of talents. Like, what did you do with them today? And if I don't feel like I did something, and I was lazy, I don't feel that good about it. So I think that, leaders and stuff are also expecting a certain amount of accountability where they've done so much and then they realize people are going to take their opportunities and the gifts of training and having a job and the support and actually do something with it. They're expecting that two-way street in return. What do you think about that in a closing statement, Dr. Brian Peters?
I agree. I don't think I have anything else to add.
Okay. Well, that's good. Well, why don't we just end up there, and appreciate you, man. It's just, I love these conversations so much. I think we got a lot of mileage with this one, and I can't wait for the next one. So have a great rest of the week, sir.
Yeah, you too. Take care.
All right.
Thank you for checking out the Science of Engagement podcast. We'd love to continue the conversation down in the comments. And if you like this episode, please give us a like and subscribe to the channel to get more Science of Engagement.